Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It started with something so ordinary, just another lazy Sunday morning. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the apartment, sunlight poured in through the half-open curtains, and soft music played in the background. Priya was humming to herself in the kitchen, wearing his oversized t-shirt, barefoot on the cool tiles. Her husband, Arjun, watched her from the living room, a small smile tugging at his lips. They had been married for 3 years now, and though life had thrown its fair share of ups and downs, there was a certain comfort in their silence, in their small shared moments. But today, something felt different in the air, an unspoken tension neither of them could quite place. Arjun stood up, walked quietly to the kitchen, and slid his arms around her waist from behind. His touch was gentle, but there was something in the way his fingers lingered, a mix of affection and something deeper, more intense. Priya froze for a second, her hands still holding the coffee mug. Her heart began to race, not out of fear, but out of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Desire. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of curiosity. She turned to face him, her eyes meeting his. "What are you doing?" she asked with a soft laugh, but her voice trembled just a little. Arjun didn't answer right away. His gaze was locked on hers, unreadable, deep. "I missed you," he finally said, his voice low. "Not just being around you. I missed us." His words weren't dramatic or loud, but they landed heavy in the space between them. Something shifted. The teasing tone in Priya's voice faded, replaced by a silence that wasn't awkward, but thick with meaning. She could feel the air change. He gently took the mug from her hand, placed it on the counter, and without another word, lifted her onto the countertop. Priya didn't resist. In fact, her fingers instinctively curled into his shirt, gripping it tightly. Her heart was pounding now, each beat echoing with memories of their early days, late-night talks, stolen kisses, endless laughter. Was this him trying to bring that spark back? Or was there something more to his sudden intensity? The quiet between them spoke louder than any words. Then, in one swift move, he picked her up, his grip firm around her waist, and started walking toward the bedroom. She let out a surprised laugh, her legs wrapping instinctively around his waist. "Arjun. What's gotten into you?" she asked, half amused, half shocked. He just smiled, but there was a mystery in his eyes, a plan he hadn't shared yet. As they reached the bedroom door, he paused, looking at her like he was about to say something important, but then didn't. Instead, he gently laid her down on the bed and sat beside her. Before he could speak, her phone buzzed. One glance at the screen, and the smile vanished from her face. "Want me to continue from here? Or should we explore one of the twists you have in mind?" Priya stared at the phone screen, her fingers tightening around the sheets. The name flashing on the display wasn't unfamiliar, but it hadn't shown up in a long time. Rohit. Arjun noticed the shift in her expression, the way her breath caught in her throat. His gaze moved from her to the phone and then back to her eyes, silently asking questions he didn't say out loud. But he didn't touch the phone. He didn't need to. The moment already felt heavy enough. She quickly turned the screen down, as if hiding it would erase the moment. "It's nothing," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her. Arjun didn't respond. He simply stood up, walked toward the window, and pulled the curtain back, letting in more light. He wasn't angry. But he wasn't at ease either. There was something in the way he looked out, like he was searching for answers in the morning sky. Priya sat up slowly, her heart still racing, not just because of the message, but because of what it stirred inside her. It wasn't guilt exactly, more like fear. Fear that something from the past might come in and shake what little piece they'd managed to rebuild. She thought she'd buried that chapter long ago. She thought Arjun would never know about it, or that it didn't matter anymore. But now, it did. "Do you want to talk about it?" Arjun finally asked, his voice calm, but not cold. That's what made it harder. He wasn't the shouting type. He never was. When he got hurt, he went quiet, and Priya knew that silence well. I didn't expect to hear from him, she said honestly. It's been over a year. He just disappeared. Her words floated between them like smoke. Arjun turned to face her, his eyes unreadable. Did you want him to disappear? He asked softly. She looked at him then, her throat tightening. She didn't answer. Outside, a car honked in the distance. Inside, time felt like it had paused. The weight of old decisions, the fragility of trust, the thin line between love and doubt, all of it wrapped around them in that one moment. Priya wanted to reach out, to tell Arjun that none of it mattered now. That she chose him. That the message didn't mean anything. But she also knew how words, once spoken, didn't always fix what they were supposed to. And just when she thought the silence would break them, Arjun said, "Come with me. I need to show you something." She looked up, startled. Where? He didn't answer. He just held out his hand. Want to keep going? Or would you like a romantic twist here? Priya hesitated for a moment, staring at Arjun's outstretched hand. There was something in his eyes that made her feel both safe and uncertain at the same time. She slowly placed her hand in his, letting him lead her out of the room. The hallway was quiet, their footsteps the only sound. It wasn't just about the message anymore, it was about everything that hadn't been said between them. As they walked, flashes of their early days came back. Long drives. Laughter over street food. Late-night talks about nothing and everything. But lately, that warmth had been replaced by silence and guessing games. He led her to the small studio room at the back of the apartment. Arjun rarely brought her here. It was his space, his personal world where he painted. As he pushed the door open, she was surprised to see the walls covered with half-finished canvases. Some were vivid, full of color and movement. Others were still bare, like waiting memories. But one painting in the center stood out. It was of her. Not just her face, but her expression. Sad. Thoughtful. Lonely. It felt like he'd seen parts of her she didn't even admit to herself. I started this after your birthday, he said quietly. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore, so I painted what I felt. Priya stepped closer, her heart tightening. She hadn't realized how much distance had crept in between them. They shared a home, a bed, routines, but somewhere along the way, they had stopped sharing themselves. She touched the edge of the canvas gently. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Arjun sat down on the small bench in the corner. You used to tell me everything, he said. Now, I find out about people like Rohit through your phone. His name hung in the air again, heavier this time. Priya closed her eyes. I knew Rohit before I met you. We were friends. Close friends. He left when I told him I was getting married. I didn't think I'd ever hear from him again. And now? Arjun asked, looking directly at her. She opened her mouth to answer but stopped. The truth wasn't simple. A part of her was confused, not because she had feelings for Rohit, but because she didn't know why his message had shaken her this much. Was it because of unfinished memories? Or because she was afraid of losing the only steady thing in her life, Arjun? Before she could gather her words, Arjun's phone buzzed. He picked it up, and for the first time that morning, his expression changed. It's from Neha, he said. Priya frowned. Your old colleague? He nodded slowly, scrolling through the message. She's in town. She wants to meet. The room felt colder now. 2 names. 2 histories. One couple trying to hold on to each other. Priya's eyes narrowed as she looked at Arjun holding his phone. She wants to meet, she asked, trying to keep her voice steady, though her heartbeat wasn't. Arjun nodded, but his face gave away little. She's just in town for a conference. Said it would be nice to catch up. Priya wasn't sure why that stung. Maybe because it came right after her phone buzzed. Maybe because Neha had always seemed a little too fond of Arjun during the time they worked together. Or maybe it was because she could feel their world, the one they had carefully built, start to shake from both sides. Arjun watched her quietly. "Are we okay, Priya?" he asked after a pause. The question came out simple, but it wasn't. It held everything: their silence over the past few months, the absence of spontaneous laughter, the growing distance, and now, the sudden appearances of people from their past. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to reach for him, to erase all the doubt. But her lips wouldn't move. Instead, she looked away. That night, neither of them slept well. Arjun stayed in the studio for hours, painting in silence. Priya lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how they ended up here, two people in love, yet walking different emotional roads. Her phone buzzed again around 2 a.m. Another message from Rohit. Just 3 words this time: "Can we talk?" She didn't reply. But she didn't delete it either. The next morning, Arjun was already dressed. "I'll be back in a few hours," he said, without explaining. She didn't ask. Maybe she already knew. As the door closed behind him, a strange emptiness filled the house. Priya stood there for a long moment, wondering if he had gone to meet Neha. Her chest tightened. Just as she turned to make coffee, there was a knock at the door. Her breath caught. She wasn't expecting anyone. She walked to the door slowly, heart racing, and opened it. Rohit stood there. He looked older, more tired, but his eyes held the same look from years ago, the one that always made her question what could have been. Before she could say anything, he whispered, "I needed to see you. Just once." And inside her, something shifted. Priya stepped back instinctively, still holding the edge of the door. Rohit looked exactly like the memory she had worked so hard to bury, but there was something unfamiliar in his eyes now, like life had changed him in ways she couldn't see. She didn't speak. Her mind was racing. Why now? Why today? "I'm sorry to just show up like this," Rohit said, his voice low and filled with emotion. "I know I've lost the right to ask anything, but I heard you got married and I needed to know if you're really happy." His words came out hesitantly, almost as if he wasn't sure whether to say them or keep them buried. Priya's throat tightened. Of all the things she expected that morning, this wasn't one. "I don't owe you answers, Rohit," she said softly, trying to sound stronger than she felt. "You disappeared. You didn't even say goodbye." "I left because I didn't want to ruin your future," he replied quickly. "But not a day has passed that I haven't thought about you." She raised her hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Don't." The silence that followed was sharp, like a storm building in the distance. Meanwhile, across the city, Arjun sat opposite Neha in a quiet cafe. They hadn't seen each other in years. Neha's smile hadn't changed, but something about her felt different, more serious, more thoughtful. "I didn't just call you to catch up," she confessed after a moment. "I needed to tell you something I should have said a long time ago." Arjun leaned forward, unsure what was coming next. Neha hesitated. "The last month we worked together. I had feelings for you. But I never said anything. You were already engaged to Priya, and I didn't want to come between you two. But I think you should know, someone from your office back then told me that Priya used to meet someone else before your engagement. I never had proof. But they were sure." Arjun's fingers tightened around his cup. His mind flashed to Priya's hesitation, the message from Rohit, the painting she never asked about. Back at the apartment, Priya stepped away from the door. Rohit hadn't moved. "I didn't come to take you away," he said gently. "I came to ask if you ever think about us. About what we were." Priya's voice trembled. "Sometimes. But it doesn't mean I want to go back." Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the table behind her. It was a message from Arjun. "We need to talk. Now." Her heart dropped. She looked at Rohit, still standing there, and whispered, "You shouldn't have come." But it was already too late. Priya didn't even bother responding to Rohit. She turned, grabbed her phone from the table, and walked straight past him. "Lock the door behind you," she said without looking back. Her voice was steady, but inside, everything was falling apart. The drive to the cafe felt endless. Her thoughts were loud, messy. Arjun, Rohit, Neha, secrets. The past wasn't just knocking, it had walked in and taken a seat in her life again. When she reached the cafe, Arjun was already standing outside, pacing. He looked up the moment he saw her, eyes unreadable. They didn't speak right away. There were no hugs, no forced smiles. Just silence, thick with everything they hadn't said. "Is it true?" he finally asked. "Was there more between you and Rohit than you ever told me?" Priya swallowed hard. "Yes. But not after I met you. I never cheated, Arjun. I never told you everything." His jaw tightened. "And now he's back. And Neha just told me that someone at the office saw you two together, before we got married." Priya stepped closer. "Yes, I met him before we got engaged. Yes, we were close. But I chose you. I loved you. I still do." Arjun looked at her, his expression breaking just a little. "Then why did it feel like we were drifting apart for months?" Priya didn't have an answer for that. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was life. But just as he was about to turn away, her phone buzzed again. She ignored it this time. "I'm tired of hiding behind the past," she said softly. "If we still have something left, something real, I want to fight for it." Arjun studied her face. "Even if it hurts?" "Especially then," she whispered. He took a slow breath, nodded once, and finally pulled her into a quiet, long embrace. Just when it felt like the storm had passed, Arjun's phone rang. He pulled it out and froze. Priya looked up at him. "Who is it?" He hesitated. "It's Rohit." Priya's eyes widened. "How does he have your number?" Arjun slowly answered the call, putting it on speaker. "I don't want Priya back," Rohit's voice said, calm and steady. "But I think she deserves to know who told me where she lives." There was a pause. "It wasn't me," he continued. "It was Neha." Priya and Arjun exchanged a shocked look. "Want to continue with a final resolution or leave it on this twist?" Arjun ended the call and stared at the phone like it had just told him something unreal. Priya stood frozen beside him, trying to piece it all together. "Why would Neha?" she whispered. "I don't know," Arjun said slowly. "Maybe she wanted to see if we'd fall apart." The hurt in his voice was quiet but deep. He looked at Priya again, really looked, and all the confusion, anger, and doubt faded into something else, understanding. They had both been carrying weight from the past, but somehow, they were still standing. Priya nodded slowly. "I guess we weren't the only ones keeping secrets." They walked away from the cafe together, side by side. No more chasing the past. No more hiding behind unspoken words. That night, Arjun deleted Neha's number without another thought. Priya blocked Rohit too, not out of hate, but to protect what she had now. The truth was messy, but sometimes, love wasn't about a perfect beginning. It was about the choice to stay. To rebuild. Over the next few weeks, something changed between them. Not in big, dramatic gestures, but in the quiet moments. Late-night talks returned. The way he touched her hand while watching TV, the way she brought him chai just the way he liked. Arjun painted again, with color this time. And Priya found herself smiling more, not out of relief, but real happiness. One evening, as they watched the sunset from their balcony, Arjun turned to her. "Do you think we'll ever be able to forget all this?" Priya smiled softly. "No. But maybe that's the point. We don't forget, we grow from it." And just like that, the past lost its power over them. The end. Dear viewers, how did you feel about the ending? Did it surprise you? Would you want a sequel where we dive into their future, or Neha's side of the story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback truly means everything. Red Heart.